And I guess that wasn't an option though with like Dragon Ball Z, where
No.
Piccolo the Train would have come out, and he was there for a good year or so, year and a half, if I remember correctly, where he wasn't tinkered with.
Yeah,
And
yeah, because
and
for a
at
long
that
period of
point, like
time, we thought he was fine.
yeah, and at that point, I mean, if it had come up that he was too powerful, you could have just been like, well, he's going to be gone in a few months anyway, so just let him go, and then refreshes the environment with something new.
Yeah, but we were running off of blocks, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another question. I have a question about Piccolo Train. When because this is the time, because I was a player at this time, so I don't think I've ever had these conversations with you about Piccolo Train. I remember playing him a lot, and this has piqued my interest from an old player's perspective. The way the game was designed, personality powers were like a fundamental mechanic, like a base mechanic of the game. Everybody had some form of a personality power. Why would you basically create a card that you started the game off in play that just removed the mechanic of the game?
Because we didn't know better.
Okay, that's what I figured. I
mean, Android, like Trunk Saga, we got to do a pretty good revamp, especially the rules base. But Android Saga was the first set that Chaz pretty much let myself and by ways of also IQ to really actually tear it apart and rebuild it from the ground up. Trunk Saga was more like, here's our clay. We still have to mold this. Our sculpture kind of looks like this. We can change it around. We can change the position of the arms, but I still got to have two arms and stuff. We were maybe able to add a few things, like masteries were added, but things like trunk sword slashes 1 through bajillion were originally in there and kind of stayed in there. Android Saga was the first one where we really got to shred and put back together. We still had to explain things to Jim more of as so that we wouldn't keep making the same mistakes over and over and keep printing cards that raised your anger 2 or raised your anger 3 or ended combat, your choice. But
by the time Android Saga rolled around, it felt as though you guys you had finally figured out the pacing of the game.
And that's because like Jim, he played the game a little bit, but for example, when we had the big stasis problem with Saiyan and Frieza Saga and stasis decks, if your deck didn't win in 90 seconds or less, your deck sucked. And when we tried to present him the problem of stasis deck, he tried to fight it off with a stasis deck. Like he really didn't try to look at the game from a TCG perspective, just more of a designer perspective and what he felt like was fun to himself. So in Android Saga, literally over half of the Android Saga was cut out. Locations and battlegrounds weren't in the original Android Saga set, and so we just tore it apart, and so we made a whole bunch of new effects. We really tried to, that was a set that we really tried to resolve the feels for each set. We knew what the masteries were, we knew what everybody's intentions were from Trunk Saga as far as how they wanted their fighting styles to focus on, and so we were able to cultivate it more. But we were new in a sense,
Yeah.
So nobody's perfect, and Piccolo the Train was one of our many mistakes.
Yeah. The Android Saga, I think, is pretty important in the history of the Dragon Ball Z card game, because, like you were saying, it's the first set where it actually, you actually got some sense of, there's structure to it. Before, it was just, I think what kept it going was people were just so excited to be playing with something that had Dragon Ball Z on it. Because at that point, I don't think even the video games were in America, really, at that point. So the Dragon Ball Z card game was the only really game that you could play with those characters on it. So people just gravitated to it. There's so many people I know who played the Dragon Ball Z card game. That's the only card game they ever played, and that's probably the only card game they will ever play. They're never going to play another one again. They never played any before it. They just really were in the Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Oh, I realize how important Android Saga was to us. It was so well received by players in general that it even won the Inquest Award for Best Expansion the year it came out. And it even, I think because of that, DBZ also won Best TCG of the Year, or New TCG or something like that in its category. But I think it was only because, people also checked it off when they were sending in stuff about Android Saga. Everybody especially the way we released Android Saga at that World Championships was pretty neat. So everything except for the championship cards getting leaked in it went right for Android Saga.
I just remember Android Saga because it came out when I was a freshman in college for the first time. I've been a freshman in college a couple of times, but I was gonna quit the game because I remember I played through Saiyan Saga and I played through Frieza Saga, and honestly, we had a hard times trying to figure out how to play the game. The rulebook was pretty poor back then.
Yeah.
And the cards, some of the cards make no sense. The Spirit of the Earth heals you. We were like, what does this card do? And then the cards that said, your opponent takes 3 life card draws. We're like, so he draws 3 cards? How is that a good card? What is wrong with this card? So I just started at college, and we were all going to quit. And we bought a box of Android Saga, and we all built decks, and we went to a tournament and played, and we were like, wow, this is really awesome. And finally there's some structure and whatnot to the game. I can feel as though I can build a Black Mastery, and it's there. I can see what direction I need to build my deck. It felt like, plus that set looks freaking awesome. It's a really well-designed set from a visual perspective.
Yeah, the card templates did look pretty good. So I was pretty happy with the way we cheesed out a lot of the locations and battlegrounds too.
And that foil pattern is sweet.
Yeah, that was from the some of the Chaz changes, because that's when we really began to start looking through and sit down with this book that was just filled to the brim, literally inches thick, of just various different foil patterns, and sitting there going, well, would this look good? Would this look good?
Even to this day, Dragon Ball Z is one of the more visually striking card games that's ever been made. It's hard to find any game that looks as good as Dragon Ball Z did.
Yeah, and that is definitely a testament to Chaz Elliott and Carl Braun's work, both of them. Because Chaz had a lot of the creative ideas, with the crazy boo cards and stuff, and Carl was the one that really brought it together and made it real life. So I know they didn't necessarily always enjoy working with each other, but it was because of both of their skills and everything that really was able to make those cards look so great.
Yeah, because even to this day, I carry Dragon Ball Z decks with me when I go to Magic tournaments, and I'll pull them out and play with my brother or a couple of friends in between the rounds. And, people walk by and always are like, what in the world are you guys playing? Those cards look awesome. And then occasionally people come up and be like, oh, I played that game when I was a kid, and they talk about that. But, it's just interesting to see that those cards hold up today as far as how they look and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, the TCG market is definitely not what it was.
Well, everybody, there's 3 games now, and they all have solidified their art styles at this point and kind of, for the most part, minimized a lot of things. People don't really go nuts with foiling anymore because I don't think it's that big of a draw for the games anymore. Because a lot of the games that are big now, they have their casual base, but then they have a big competitive base, and the competitive players, they don't care if it's what the card looks like. It could be drawn in crayon as long as it's good. A good card in the game.
Yeah, but there's always some people that just want to be able to have the bigger EP by having something flashier than their opponent. But just as the card templates in general, just leaving the foils out. Magic's kind of stuck in its look. They can't really deviate too much.
They revamp it every so many years.
Yeah, but it still looks the same.
Yeah, that's their brand. Those card template is a brand at this point.
Yeah, I know.
Same with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon.
Yeah, but you would think that other newer TCGs released on the market, like the World of Warcraft TCG,
Another thing too, is Score had the benefit of making really coming from a company that made really complex sports cards. So the whole idea of making a gatefoil card or a high-tech card to another company that doesn't have any experience designing or printing those type of cards was probably pretty daunting and very expensive, where Donruss, they do all those crazy autograph inserts and those die cut cards, and they, foiling came from football cards like chrome football cards and stuff like that, and embossing on cards. That was all stuff that was done in the football world. So those were all printing techniques that Score knew how to do because of the football side. So it gave them a really big heads up over their competition when it came to printing uniquely designed cards, like a high-tech card. No other game can really pull off a high-tech card, mainly because very few games have cards that start and play anymore. Most of them come out of a randomized deck. You just bring your randomized deck to the game.
Yeah, that's a very heavy mindset from Magic players, especially people that have been groomed for Magic, because there's this idea that if both of y'all don't start with any cards in play, that from that very beginning point, it's an even game, when really it's not, but it just has that appearance of it because no cards have actually started in play. But that's more of a gaming philosophy debate. So
yeah,
because I definitely don't agree with that. I think if you're playing a Sly deck versus some deck that's not good against Sly,
you just dated yourself on Magic there, sir.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. What are these new Planeswalker cards? Ugh.
Sly was old when Planeswalkers came out 3 years ago.
Well, Sly still exists. They probably just call it something different.
They haven't printed a Sly card in years.
They haven't printed a red weenie creature. They haven't printed a new version of Lightning Bolt or brought back Lightning Bolts.
They did, yeah. Actually, they did bring back Lightning Bolt, and they have Goblin Guide. So I guess in that.
Yeah. I mean, it may not be that good in the environment right now. I mean, that's totally different.
No one refers to it as Sly anymore. I should just say that. No one refers to it as Sly.
Yeah. Like I said, Magic's had generations of players. It's going to be sad when my nephews start playing that game.
I hear you. I do.
Back in my day, they numbered their base sets based off of the actual number of the set in the order. They didn't name it after the year.
Yeah, it's the year now, yeah.
Back in my day, we didn't have these mythic rare things.
So do either of you have any regrets from your time working on the DBZ card game? Is there anything that you did while you were working there did you regret?
You worked on Dragon Ball Z longer than I did.
We can extend this to GT as well.
I have my regrets, but David's probably got more than I do.
Well, you can go ahead and start, man, because I got to think on this a little bit.
I just regret GT in general. Honestly, that was really poorly mismanaged. Regret
There's a bunch of
Reezy.
fanboys tearing up their GT cards after hearing Garrett say that.
Well, I
Garrett
thought
doesn't like it. Tear.
I think that it's fine amongst itself. Like, it's fine with the focused environment, but like when you throw it with the old cards and all that stuff, it just makes the game go haywire and nuts. And giving everybody Android 18, I don't know. It's a big debate, I guess. And then Reezy's pretty kind of, I don't know. That's just a big mess as well. I don't know. It's not, none of it's like necessarily like Dave will probably have the same situation. It's like if we could have changed some of these things, we probably could have, but it was a lot of that was out of our hands. Like the GT rules changes and all that stuff. Like, I mean, we could have said like we're all going to get up and walk out if you do this, and they would have been like, well, there's the door, walk out. We can find somebody else to do this. That's the mindset that a lot of the upper management had.
Yeah, because the division went through a management change at the same time that the GT transition was really actually beginning in-house. Kid Buu hadn't been released or was getting ready to be released at this time. But do you have any others?
No, nothing that has to do with like the Dragon Ball Z era score. I have like regrets from the whole post Dragon Ball Z era score that are a lot different. Like I regret not ever getting to see Afterworld come out.